Welcome, viewer, to our Midnight Terror, 3 tales of late-night horror. In the still of a suburban night, an eerie silence envelops the neighborhood. Only the distant bark of a dog pierces the quiet. Houses stand like silent sentinels, their windows dark. Amidst this tranquility, one house becomes the focal point of a mysterious tale about to unfold. Alone at home, the protagonist's evening shatters with the unexpected jangle of a phone. Picking up, they're met with a whispering voice, chilling in its serenity, promising a visit when the clock strikes 12. The words hang heavy in the air, a foreboding promise from an unknown caller. As minutes tick by, anxiety mounts. The protagonist watches the clock, each tick echoing the beating of their heart. The night seems to press in closer, a tangible weight of anticipation. Strange, unexplained noises from outside add to the growing dread, making the wait for midnight almost unbearable. The phone's ring slices through the silence once more, a harbinger of the promised moment. Yet, it's the soft, almost hesitant knock on the door that freezes the blood in their veins. Debating the wisdom of their next move, the protagonist is caught between fear and the desperate need for answers. With a courage born of desperation, they approach the door. The night reveals nothing but darkness beyond the threshold, a void where imagination conjures horrors. Yet it's the phone's sudden, jarring ring that truly terrifies, hinting at a presence already within, as unseen footsteps draw near, shrouded in the night's embrace. The phone's sudden ring cuts through the silence, a stark contrast to the quiet night. Hesitation grips the protagonist as they contemplate answering. The decision weighs heavily, a mixture of fear and curiosity. With a deep breath, they move towards the phone, each step echoing in the tense air. Upon lifting the receiver, an eerie silence fills the room before a soft, almost imperceptible knock sounds from the door. The timing is uncanny, sending a shiver down the protagonist's spine. The connection between the phone call and the knock is unmistakable, yet the reason behind it remains shrouded in mystery. Torn between the safety of ignorance and the need to confront their fear, the protagonist stands frozen for a moment. The knock echoes in their mind, a haunting reminder of the unknown that lies just beyond their doorstep. With a resolve born of fear and curiosity, they make the decision to answer the door. Approaching the door, their hand trembles as it reaches for the knob. The night air feels thick with anticipation. As the door creaks open, the protagonist is met with an overwhelming emptiness. The darkness outside seems to stare back, an abyss waiting to swallow them whole. Suddenly, the phone pierces the silence once more, its ring echoing ominously through the empty house. The realization dawns that this midnight caller's intentions are far from benign. With a whisper revealing their presence within the house, the chilling truth sets in. Footsteps approach, the sound magnifying the dread that fills the air, leaving the protagonist's fate hanging in the balance. In the dead of night, the protagonist's phone pierces the silence with its unexpected ring. Heart racing, they answer. A whispering voice, chilling and barely audible, promises a visit when the clock strikes 12. The call ends abruptly, leaving the protagonist staring at the phone, a sense of dread settling in. As the hours tick by, the protagonist's anxiety mounts. They can't shake off the eerie promise of the midnight caller. Every creak and whisper of the wind sends shivers down their spine. The clock's hands inch closer to 12, each tick amplifying the building tension. The night feels darker, the silence more oppressive. Suddenly, strange noises disrupt the quiet night outside the house. The protagonist's imagination runs wild, picturing all sorts of sinister figures lurking in the shadows. The anticipation of the midnight visitor becomes almost unbearable. They glance nervously at the clock, watching as the final minute before midnight seems to stretch on forever. The phone's shrill ring breaks the tense silence again, making the protagonist jump. They hesitate, fear gripping them tightly. Then, a soft knock at the door sends them into a panic. Heart pounding, they're torn between the urge to hide and the need to face whatever waits on the other side. Ultimately, bravery, or perhaps curiosity wins. The protagonist approaches the door, their hand trembling as it reaches for the knob. They open the door slowly, revealing nothing but the dark, empty night. Relief washes over them for a brief moment before the phone's ring echoes through the house again, a sinister reminder that the night's terror is far from over. Journey with us to our second tale. As dusk fell, the protagonist noticed the reflections in the antique mirror becoming increasingly sinister. Shadows seemed to move of their own accord, and faces that weren't their own flickered in the glass. It was as if the mirror served as a portal to a darker world, barely concealed behind its reflective surface. The air grew colder, a palpable tension filling the room as a chilling figure materialized in the mirror. It stood still, watching the protagonist with an unnerving gaze. The figure's eyes seemed to pierce through the glass, making it clear that it was not just a reflection but something more malevolent. In a desperate attempt to rid themselves of the haunting, the protagonist covered the mirror with a heavy cloth. But as the fabric fell, the glass beneath it was mysteriously absent, leaving behind an empty frame. The room's temperature plummeted further, a clear sign that the entity had not been deterred. A whisper echoed from the direction of the mirror, sending shivers down the protagonist's spine. The voice, barely above a murmur, seemed to be speaking directly to them, its words laced with malice. It was a challenge, a provocation that couldn't be ignored any longer. Fueled by a mix of fear and determination, the protagonist faced the empty frame, demanding the end of the haunting. Suddenly, the mirror shattered with violent force, the fragments scattering across the floor. However, the figure from the mirror now stood before them, free from its glassy prison and in their very room. In the dimly lit room, the protagonist stood defiantly before the antique mirror, their heart racing. They demanded an end to the haunting, their voice echoing against the walls. The air hung heavy, charged with an unseen tension, as if the very fabric of reality awaited the mirror's response. Suddenly, the mirror's surface rippled violently, as if struck by an invisible force. The glass shattered, sending shards flying across the room. But instead of revealing a wall behind, there stood a chilling figure, its eyes piercing through the darkness. The protagonist's breath caught in their throat as they faced this new terror. Outside, a child played innocently in the fading light of dusk, unaware of the sinister events unfolding indoors. They paused, feeling a sudden chill in the air, and looked towards the house. For a moment, it seemed as if the shadows within were alive, shifting and twisting. Inside, the protagonist's mind raced, searching for a way out. The figure advanced, its form blurring between human and something far more sinister. With every step, the temperature dropped further, the air thickening with dread. The protagonist knew they had to escape, to flee from this nightmare. As they turned to run, the figure's reflection appeared in every surface, haunting their retreat. Mirrors, windows, even the polished surface of the floor seemed to trap the menacing gaze of the entity. The protagonist's home had become a labyrinth of reflections, each turn revealing the figure's haunting presence, closer and closer. And with that, takes us to our third and final tale in this evening's trilogy, one which sees the child's nightly complaints of a shadow lurking in the corner which had always been dismissed by their parents as just a vivid imagination. Yet, the fear in their eyes was undeniable, a terror so raw it began to sow seeds of doubt in the minds of the skeptical adults. Deciding to address their child's fears head-on, the parents announced they would spend the night in the child's room. They hoped this act would demonstrate there was nothing to fear, expecting a quiet night that would put an end to the bedtime anxieties once and for all. As the night deepened, the house settled into silence, and the child's earlier terror seemed exaggerated. But just past midnight, under the veil of darkness, a chilling realization struck the parents. The corner of the room, previously dismissed as innocuous, began to darken further, coalescing into a form that was distinctly unnatural. The shadow, unlike any they had seen, had an ominous presence. It wasn't cast by any object in the room, but seemed to exist independently, pulsating with a malevolent energy. Its edges were sharp and defined, and within its depths, two glowing red eyes stared back, paralyzing the parents with fear. Attempts to flee were instinctive, yet futile. As they rushed to the door, a force beyond their understanding held it shut, trapping them in the room with the malevolent shadow. The realization dawned on them. The terror their child had been facing nightly was all too real, and now they were its latest witnesses. In the dead of night, the family witnessed the shadow move with intent, its glowing red eyes piercing the darkness. It was a sight that chilled them to the bone, a confirmation of the child's fears. This was no ordinary shadow. It was something far more sinister, alive in its own right. With hearts racing, they scrambled for the door, desperate to escape the room that had become a prison. But the door remained stubbornly shut, as if the shadow itself wielded the power to trap them. Panic set in as they realized their escape was not going to be easy. In a moment of courage, they turned to face the shadow head-on, armed only with a flashlight. The light hit the shadow, eliciting a shriek that echoed through the house. To their astonishment, the shadow dissipated, vanquished by the beam of light, offering them a fleeting moment of relief. The next day, curiosity led them to peel back the wallpaper, revealing ancient symbols scratched into the wall. These were not random marks, but symbols of dark magic, hinting at a history of the land they were unaware of. The revelation was unsettling, suggesting their ordeal was far from over. Research into the symbols uncovered a grim truth. Their home was built on cursed land, plagued by a malevolent entity. The realization was enough to drive them to leave, seeking solace and safety away from the shadow's reach. Yet, as they departed, an uneasy feeling lingered, suggesting the shadow was still lurking, biding its time for the next unsuspecting family. In their new home, the family sought peace, eager to leave the dark memories behind. They unpacked, filling the rooms with laughter and light, a stark contrast to the shadow that had haunted their nights. Yet in their hearts, a silent fear lingered, a reminder of the darkness they had fled. As days turned to weeks, the family noticed subtle, unsettling changes. Objects would move inexplicably, and cold drafts swept through rooms without reason. These incidents, though minor, reignited their fears, whispering to them that perhaps the shadow was not confined to the old house after all. Determined to confront their fears, the family sought help from experts in the supernatural. Paranormal investigators equipped with gadgets and ancient knowledge entered their home, hoping to cleanse it of any lingering malevolence. Their presence brought a temporary comfort, a hope that the shadow could be banished forever. But as the investigators delved deeper, they uncovered a chilling truth. The shadow was not tied to the house, but to the family, a curse cast long ago. The realization struck fear into their hearts, understanding that no move could distance them from the darkness. It was a battle they had to face, together. This brings us to the end of our trilogy for this evening. We hope you have enjoyed our cautionary tales. If you would like to see more of our horror stories, please like and subscribe to our channel to enjoy more terror tales. For now, sleep well, viewer, and we hope to see you next time.